Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Irn-Cru podcast, an NFL podcast made in Scotland by NFL lovers. You are listening to and watching the review crew, and I am your host, Brian, the conscience of Cleveland Donlan. Now, remember, folks, like, subscribe, follow the crew. You can find us on Twitter, on Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, we are there. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a follow, and help to grow the community. Now, before we get started tonight, chaps, actually, I feel the need to just make an announcement before we go any further. There are no scheduled fire alarms during the podcast tonight. So if you do hear an alarm, please report to your nearest muster station, unless, of course, you have a touchdown montage to do, in which case, stay to this. As we did just all enjoy Red Zone last night, everybody getting evacuated out of the building with the sole exception of Scott Hansen, who for some reason was immune to the fire regulations and allowed to stay behind. But anyway, so yes, we've got no fire drills planned, is the good news. Now, as always, I am joined by some of the finest and most flame retardant members of the crew. First, Liam, you've got things to be thankful for this week.
Indeed.
What
a holiday weekend, eh?
It must be a bitter one, actually, because you can't even say like it's Victory Monday. You got to have what, Victory Friday?
Oh, I enjoyed all weekend of victory.
It does take a big weight off the shoulders when you're on prime time Thursday night football and you get a win, and you just enjoy Red Zone all day Sunday with no hassle, no stress.
It was a joy.
Gav, now, speaking of Victory Mondays, Gav, it's Victory Monday.
I'm on a streak here.
This is like, honestly, you're eyeing up far more than cutlets. You're eyeing up 500s. How are you doing, mate?
Well, I guess there's a price to be paid for that victory. The price was that game. Not too much more about that later.
Yeah, no, I can confirm, ladies and gentlemen, we will discuss the New England New York Giants game briefly. It's about the fairest way to treat that spectacle of sport that we were all treated to. It's a sad thing when a game finishes and the main talking point is, I wonder how many people will get sacked. And we're not talking about Sam Howell for a change. Right, okay. Now, do you know, with my final crew member, we're actually at the point where I'm reasonably convinced that the Eagles are keeping games close at this point deliberately, just so Kev can come on and continue to tell us that they do just enough to win. Kev, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate, but to be honest, I'm absolutely shattered today. I feel like we were on the Sunday night football. That game seemed to go on and on forever. But it was well worth it. I really enjoyed it.
Now that is one we're going to be talking about later, because this phrase is bandied about a lot, but I think it's kind of fair. Instant classic. I'm going to say that Eagles Bills game was pretty much an instant classic. That was excellent football for both teams.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. We are going to get stuck in with our kick-off question of the night. And this week, it's all about sporting traditions. So the guys actually in the Thanksgiving crew last week, they talked a wee bit about, your Thanksgiving traditions and what do you have to be thankful for. And Liam and all of the denizens of Green Bay are thankful that the Detroit Lions stuck with their Thanksgiving sporting tradition of taking a doing on Thanksgiving. Because I don't know, they've not won it in something like 10 years or something ridiculous, since the Lions have won a Thanksgiving game. It's like some crazy run. But anyway, it is all about tonight. What are your favourite sporting traditions? NFL, any other sport that you fancy? What is your favourite tradition that just makes you happy? Gav, kick me off, mate. What is your favourite sporting tradition?
Well, I've got to say that the first one that comes to my mind, which crosses the NFL, is has been sadly taken away from us by the expansion of the NFL calendar. But I always loved the fact that the before we went to 17 game season, the Super Bowl always seemed to cross paths with the start of the Six Nations. So that was like kind of transition from one season to another on the same weekend. But sadly, that's been brutally robbed by the expansion of the calendar. So now I think the Super Bowl is obviously a week later. So that's been taken away from us. But that's probably the one that jumps to my mind and has an NFL hint.
You know, I'm going to be wildly selfish and say, frankly, screw you, Gav, because what the expansion has meant is that the Super Bowl now, more often than not, lands on the big middle of February bank holiday, which means I can stay up and watch it properly and have a wee drink and not have to worry about getting up to go to my work on the Monday. So I'm in favour of that, even though it ruins your lovely sporting transition. I'm a fan. Completely self-centered, and I'm not sorry about it in the slightest. Liam, what about yourself, mate? What are your favourite sporting tradition?
I suppose I'm going to stick with American football, NFL. Always good fun seeing the Gatorade shower at the end of some sort of victory or championship. I think there was one. Was it last week? I don't know if it was this week or last week. It was a college game where they threw it over one of the coaches, and they were interviewing at the time, and the interviewer, whatever her name was, women got absolutely soaked as well, which is always good fun, isn't it? So
yeah, it's one of these things that like British sport in general kind of lacks that.
Yeah.
That spontaneity.
They don't have that bucket, not even bucket. What do you call it? Tankard of sports juice.
Tankard of John Smiths or something like that.
Yeah.
Tankard of heavy. McEwen's. That wouldn't go as well. Just replace that. I suppose the British weather's got a lot to be responsible here for. Even when we try and do like an open top bus tour after winning a title, there's one thing doing that through Tampa Bay. It's quite another doing it through like Bristol. It's not quite the same. No offense to the fine people of Bristol. I'm sure your town city's a beautiful place. Just offending a major town and city. Why not? Kev, what about yourself, mate? What is your favourite sporting tradition?
Well, I think that when you gave us that question, the first thing that sprung to my mind in terms of traditions was the Masters and the green jacket. And I must say I do really like that. And obviously we've pinched that for our Dynasty Fantasy League, where the winner now gets a jacket, a la the Masters.
See, for the benefit of the people who aren't watching the pod live, this is why you should watch us on YouTube, folks, because you get to see me donning said winner's jacket.
Yeah, okay, Brian. All right, you won.
Now, Kev, come now. I won twice.
Yeah, you won twice. Yeah, you beat me in the final, and then knocked me out in the playoffs the following year. I know. I'm never getting over it.
There's no shame in losing to a champion, mate. No shame in it. A back-to-back Dynasty champion. The three-peat is still on, even though my team has been absolutely devastated by injuries. I now actually have 6 players on my roster on IR, which I really need to start cutting some people. But that's a problem for another day. Right, okay, folks. We are going to get started actually stuck into some Week 12 review. So, I mean, 3 games that we're going to take a good solid look at. Now, normally when we're on, I do like to give everybody a homer game because it's always good fun to talk about your own team. And we're going to go 2/3 of the way having homer games this week. As mentioned, however, Gav is getting absolutely nowhere near a homer game this week because just nobody needs to talk about punting the ball that frequently. Now, we will start at the beginning as it's a good place to start. It was where football started this week. It was, before we went this, was everybody else loving having Thursday and Friday football?
I do love that.
Then you've got college ball on Saturday, and it's 4 days of football joy. And then we do still have Monday night football to go as well. I think we should petition the league to get more Friday night games on the go.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a winner. Right, we're going to start and say with first the traditional Thanksgiving game. It was Green Bay Packers playing the Detroit Lions, and we've already given this the ending away, but it was, as tradition dictates, a Green Bay victory. And I actually did look it up. It was 2016 was the last time, so it wasn't as long ago as I thought.
No.
But yeah, so it was 2000. This is what I'm actually double checking. I think it was 2016 the last time the Lions actually managed a win. So you're talking nearly a decade of dominance from Green Bay at least once a year. Liam, talk us through the game. What were your big observations? What were your big talking points?
Well, I'd like to say I was fully confident coming into that game that we're definitely going to put up those points. It was going to happen. Yeah, it was a joy to behold, shall I say? It was a good victory. We just kind of, from the Green Bay Packers' point of view, first play of the game, 50 yards, odd throw to Watson, just set us up, kind of set the tone, I think, for the kind of game ahead. And we just kind of didn't really look back. And it was from the season that's gone by so far, it was a nice change, shall we say? But yeah, we just, I don't know. It was. I don't know. Actually, I think it was last time I was on the pod. It was after the Steelers lost. It was. I think I said it was first time I felt good after a loss, and we've kind of just slowly built, week on week, a wee bit. We kind of got a bit of a momentum going. Not saying we're going to do anything loads in the rest of the season, but at least we're actually showing some progress. But yeah, it was we snuck. Well, not snuck. Got out to the first touchdown, first drive, then it goes straight back down. Lions go straight back down the other end, and you just kind of think, "Oh, here we go, back and forth again." Lions putting up the points again. But then by the end of the first quarter, we're up 20-6 after Goff kind of giving us a nice fumble recovery for a pick six. That was nice. And we just didn't really. And then we just kind of dominated all across the board. It was strange. It's strange to speak this way. Our lines were good. We didn't. I don't think Love got sacked. Our defensive side of the ball, we were after Goff all the time, putting under pressure. He had three fumbles total. And we just the Lions being Lions, obviously being aggressive, going for fourth downs.
Mm.
I think they were successful. One out of the 5. I think they went for. So it was just first time. I know it's cliche to say complementary football, but we're doing it all. We're defense, offense, and even special teams got in there with the, getting that fake punt, under wraps, cutting that back shot, and that actually led to a touchdown in the third quarter. Basically sealed the game. But I wouldn't say I was confident going even into the fourth quarter, where they drove on us and got it back to a score, and that was kind of going to be a Packers. It's like, are we going to actually lose this game? But thankfully, the onside kick was not to be, even though we do like an onside kick, So,
I do like although you need to credit some special teams trickery is always a winner. A wee bit of trickery in special teams is always good.
So,
do you know what, Liam? See what you're saying? Like, you didn't go out of the game confident. You're trying to play things down. Right. The Packers are currently sitting third in the North, 5-6. Which you go, right, okay, this point of the year, look to next year. However, right, next, you're at Kansas City, you're probably going to get stuffed. Then, however, Giants, Buccaneers, Panthers, Vikings that are coming to Green Bay, and
Minnesota. I think it's Minnesota, but anyway, either way.
Anyway, Vikings. Then you've got the Bears. There's some pretty winnable games there, mate.
There is indeed. I know. Well, coming into this, even to this stretch, if you said to me, like, whatever happens with KC game, if we lose that's fine. But say in this stretch of the Chargers, the Lions, and the Chiefs, if we came with two wins out of 3, I'd have bitten your hand off for that. So I thought these were games we would probably lose, or might got one, maybe one win out of the three of this kind of stretch. And as you say, the upcoming schedule after that, after the KC game, is not too shabby, shall we say? So we'll see. Just
It's an interesting one because you can't tell me that if I'd offered you a 9-8 finish at the start of the year, you would have been delighted. Now, with all the turmoil and all the question marks around the entirety of Green Bay, I don't think it's fair for us just to say there's question marks around Jordan Love at the start of the season. There's question marks around most parts of that team. But I don't think if you look at that slate of games coming up, 9-8's unreasonable. That's perfectly reasonable finish. Lose to the Chiefs, lose to Minnesota, say, win the rest. Sneaky playoffs. Or you know what? Get in. Then hang on a minute. How are we doing at 8? Is there any way we can potentially make this so that the Jets also make the playoffs? And then Rodgers comes back just to somehow play against the Jets and the Packers, make it somehow to the Super Bowl, just for Aaron Rodgers to come with some terrible ghost of Christmas past.
That could be a stretch there, Brian, I think.
Well, listen, this is why I'm going to get employed by the scriptwriters at the NFL.
Indeed.
Because you can't tell me that story wouldn't sell tickets.
But yeah, all round, like, this season was all about progress. We're showing progress now compared to what we were a couple of weeks ago. So things are on up. And like, we went into this game also with, I think, 17 players on the injury list. We were out without our top safety, our top cornerback, top running back, and we still went into Detroit. And Detroit, okay, they're a good team and they're going to put up points, and we actually, outscore them like quite convincingly. Okay, they kind of made it close in the end, but really overall we were cruising, or should have been cruising really into the third quarter. So yeah, it was a nice victory to watch.
Right, well, here's my question to the rest of the crew then. Because there's been a lot made of Detroit this year. I think we've all been guilty of getting on board with a hype, with a love for Detroit. But what do we do? Like, are Detroit still knocking on the door for the top seed in the NFC? Because that was the big chat. That was, they're coming for the Eagles, they're coming for the Cowboys.
That was the Gav that said that, nobody else.
Right, okay, well, we know you didn't say it, Kev. But, do you know what? We'll come to Gav at the end because Gav has been the big Detroit lover. So, Kev, is this one? Do you look at now? There must have been a wee part of you thinking, yeah, NFC Championship game. You'd like to think that you're definitely going to be there, and then a toss up, call it, between Cowboys / Lions against you.
Bills.
NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I think I really like the Lions. I enjoy watching them, and I do think they're a good team. And yeah, I think maybe if you look at the schedule that we've got, I mean we're kind of halfway through the really really tough schedule that we had. We've had the Cowboys, the 49ers, the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bills. So if you looked at that schedule and you looked at how the Lions were playing, then you've got to say there was a chance. But I think the results that we've had the past 4 or 5 weeks, I don't think we've got any fear for anybody. Let alone the Lions.
Whoa. Hang on a minute here. You've got a double header against Tommy DeVito still to go.
So we do.
Don't you be getting ahead of yourself, son. You've already been scalped by one team from New Jersey. He's coming in to make it the double.
Oh no.
Imagine that. Imagine the Eagles finished the year and they've only got 3 losses and they've came to the Jets and the Giants twice.
It's a possibility, man. It's a possibility.
I don't know. It's the kind of thing the universe would do just to mess with us.
Yep.
Okay, so Kev's got absolutely no fear, no respect for the Lions. They're a busted flush. Gav, you had such love for them. You had such a crush. I'm going to remind Gav that he's on mute. There you go, he remembered himself.
No, I think for me it was all about the schedule, because I think this is the thing. We knew that the, both the teams have got different challenges. I think myself and Kev were talking about this during the week. I think the window for the Lions was really the next sort of 3 weeks. The Eagles have had some really difficult games, and to be fair, have already come through 2 of them. The Lions, I think, on paper, have a couple of relatively soft games, and to this point, based on their form, you would have included the Packers at home in that.
Yep.
On this season, not on Thanksgiving's past, but the script does kind of flip. I think the Lions finish with 2 games against the Vikings, which, I mean, it's not the worst opposition. It's not the easiest either. And then they've also got to play the Cowboys, who you'll think will definitely be playing for seeding. So that's going to be a tricky one. I still think that the Lions are going to be winning that division, no problem. I do think, let's maybe take a wee back pedal from last week. I think the way things have developed, the 1 seed is going to be a stretch for them now. I think the problem, I be honest, I didn't catch the entirety of Thursday's game, but the problem is that they really got themselves into a hole. And I think, as we saw, they actually did turn it around in the second half against the Packers. But the problem seems to have been for the Lions, when things haven't gone well, and it's been rare, but when it hasn't gone well, it's gone really badly. They get absolutely hammered by the Ravens, and similarly, they let Green Bay get up to a big lead early on, and a lot of that was self-inflicted, with turnovers and bad decisions in the first half.
It's the interesting one, because, as you say, the Lions, I hate sayings like this, by the way, but the Lions won the second half. It's such a ridiculous. It's the kind of thing you listen to, like, folk on Sky Sports, and you're like, aye, but they were 6-0 down for the first half. But it was, second half went 16-6 in favour of the Lions. Green Bay obviously just shot out to 23-6 at the half, and that was it. There was just no real coming back. It would have been a massive, massive turnaround for them to do it. And yes, there were shades where I'm sure Liam was checking his pants to make sure that he hadn't soiled himself as it was getting towards the end of that game. But at the end of the day, when you put yourself into that type of hole, it's a special kind of team that brings that back. It's not an okay team. And don't get me wrong, yeah. Are the Lions going to be there in the...
For me, I think the biggest part of that problem that you mentioned there, Gav, is I think it's all on the quarterback. That's the second game I've watched this year where he's thrown an interception early doors, and then he's followed it up with what was it, the fumble this time, that was ended up being a pick six. And then another interception thrown later. I think that the last time he got away with it because they came back and they won it late. And this time, if you keep putting yourself in a hole like that, their offense has been great, and he did manage to shake it off, arguably again, putting up much better numbers second half. But they just gave themselves too much to do this time, and if you keep putting yourself in that position, then you are going to get found out eventually.
Well, do you know what? We'll take that as our seamless link from teams that like to put themselves in difficult positions and fail to a team that likes to put themselves in difficult positions and do just enough, trademark, patent pending, every time somebody says it, they okay for $5. So it was the Eagles and the Bills. I'm not even going to preface this one too much, Kev. I'm going to give you one, because what a game. This was an absolute, It was a classic, and I've no shame in saying that.
Yeah, an absolute classic. It's one of the best games I've watched, or certainly one of the games I've enjoyed watching the most since I got in the NFL. It was just 2 proper football teams, 2 really good football teams playing proper football. everything was working for both sides. There was big stands on defence when they were needed. There was, great passing plays made. There was a lot of good running for the both sides, and it just seemed to ebb and flow. And for me, watching it in the first half, there was a time when I felt as though, God, we're in for a really tough game here. And then just coming up to half time, I actually thought, this is actually going to be.
It's going to be absolutely because Kev just swapped
bombshell.
seats for no reason. Kev, you didn't need to take Studs' internet for today.
So I thought coming up to half time, we seemed to be in control, and then it turned on its head again, and then obviously towards the end, we dug ourselves out of a massive hole with the last kick of the normal time to take it to OT. But for me, I did, immediately after the game think, just same old, same old. We just done enough again. But I think last night's game, it kind of gave me a much bigger insight into how the Eagles are doing that, because before I couldn't figure it out. I was just like, we just seem to just do enough all the time, but I didn't quite understand why. But I think watching that game last night, it seemed to me that when they seem to like almost up their game in the crucial moments. So throughout the game, they're not playing at their top level throughout the entire game. It's just when they really, really need to, they step up. And it's one time it might be somebody on defence making a massive stop when we really need it, and then on the other side of the ball when time's running down and we need to score, we've got Hurts, who is just so clutch. And he always seems to find somebody in his offense to throw to or to give the ball to run, and they deliver in those big moments. I mean, the perfect example last night was we were really struggling. We had to try and get up into field goal range, and then Jason Kelsey, done something that's very unlike. Good Kelsey done something that's really unlike him, which was to cost us 10 yards. A really big moment in the game, and it looked like he'd messed it up for us. And then Jake Elliott comes out and kicks that field goal, which was ridiculous in the conditions for the distance that he made it. But there's just, as I said, if we're struggling as a team, or if somebody on the team's not quite performing, somebody else always just steps up and makes a play. And yeah, I felt as though last night against a really, really good team, it made sense almost, because obviously you're not going to get it all your own way against the Bills, and I think they all took turns at stepping it up, and that's the sort of way we play all the time. And against lesser teams, you maybe think, well, why are we not blowing this team out? But it's just because they just seem to step up when it matters. And last night, I thought the team were incredible.
So now, it is interesting. Me and Kev talked a wee bit about this before we went live. The mental kind of toughness side of that Philadelphia Eagles team is really, really something to witness. And it was the great example of it. And if you haven't seen this yet, it's something that's well worth getting in and checking. And it was right at the coin toss in overtime. So it's overtime, it's high stakes, it's high stress. Coin toss goes. Bills win the coin toss, and you've got Gabe Davis. Yeah, we'll take the ball. And then I've even went and double checked who it was on the Eagles side. You've got Brandon Graham. Just immediately, it doesn't matter. You have the ball. we are still going to be. And this, it's not like you're talking about some defensive pitched battle that's really low scoring. It's like a 14-14 overtime game and no. You're talking about a game that at that point is what would it have been? 31-31. So
Yeah.
it's been a high scoring game. The defenses have been vulnerable, but
Yeah.
the pure confidence that doesn't matter. You have your shot on offense first. We are still going to come back and take you. That's the kind of it must give you such confidence as a fan in the team and what they do and all the rest of it.
I mean, now it does. For quite,
last night when he said that,
yeah, for quite a long time, constantly being in those positions, it was all it was doing was giving me stress and anxiety. But now, because we do it so often, you've got that belief now. You know that the guys, they'll find a way. I mean, Hurt said it after the game. We always find a way. And I think the interesting thing was they mentioned it in commentary last night. Josh Allen in overtime games is like 0-5, 0-1. 0-1 this season, and when they said that kind of gave me a bit of confidence, because I thought, well, the Bills, we've seen them in the playoffs choking quite a lot last few years, and when you get a statistic like that up, you go, yeah, they're bottlers. But the way they played yesterday, they looked like anything but bottlers, and when they got that first possession in overtime, that drive, minus the penalty, which again looked like we were going to shoot ourselves in the foot until we made a big stop. But it was, for me, it was just like the Bills looked like legit, like they weren't going to choke, they weren't going to throw this away. So we really had to step up. But again, they're just so adept now at raising their game in the big moments, and that bodes well for hopefully a Super Bowl run.
Now, you were very nice and very magnanimous in your victory, Kev, and giving the Bills many, many compliments. However, at the end of the day, they did still choke. And you'd had 3rd and 6 at the Philadelphia 22, and you go incomplete to Gabe Davis. And that sets you up, and you need to walk away with just taking a field goal. And even then, I don't know, I'm sure the analytics people would say that, yeah, you do. You always take that field goal. You don't go for it in 4th and try and go for the win there and then. But the Bills do constantly bottle it. And I'm saying this as somebody, I've predicted the Bills for all form of glory this year, and I am being shown up to look like a complete ninny. And we've spoken about it before in the pod, but and you know what? I'm not going to say that the Bills window has closed. I'm going to say that the Bills window has been welded shut. Everybody inside the building is dead, and frankly, it's like there's one of those big black crosses in the door. I feel like back in the plague times, do not enter here, do not open. Is this Liam? Come on in, guys. What are we just? So lots been said about the Eagles' mental toughness and how they just do enough consistently. And it seems to me we have the exact opposite conversation about the Bills, who were they just come short consistently. Wait, what's the score with this? What do we need to take about the Bills here?
I've got to say, Brian, that's spoken like someone who's definitely on to his 3rd string quarterback now. When we talk about windows closing,
later, don't worry.
Yeah, I think if we look at the Bills, it feels like the writing's probably been on the wall for a while. During the course of this season, I guess when we talk about sort of the mental side of the game, the fact is that they've beaten several teams quite comfortably this year. The points differential looks really good. It was certainly something was talked about during the game last night. The problem is the number of close games that they're losing. And I think the one thing that you'd say is that turned into a superb game of football in the second half. In the first half, the Bills dominated that game.
Mhm.
However, they were only, I think, 10 points up at the
They're
half,
17-7 at the half.
17-7. They had 2 missed field goals, which ultimately made the big difference. They also had Dalvin Cook dropped what should have been a touchdown as well. So there's misfires there. And I think that's one of these things that, I mean, a lot's been written about, Hurts and his ability to pull off these comebacks. It's one thing facing a 10-point deficit at the half. It's another when it's, maybe 20 potentially. But the fact is they didn't get into that position. I am going to say, though, that I guess in defence of the Bills, I don't think that we can put too much of it in Josh Allen. I thought he had a hell of a game last night.
Yeah.
One interception, yeah, but 4 total touchdowns, 420 yards. This wasn't the kind of game where you were kind of padding your stats in garbage time. This was Allen and Hurts trading blows for 60 plus minutes actually, and I think we can talk about the missed kicks, but the one thing that jumped out to me in that overtime drive, there was a couple of moments where Allen and his receivers didn't seem to be on the same page. I think we'll talk a lot about the third down where
Gabe Davis.
Davis
Yeah.
would go into the corner
Mhm.
and Allen's thrown up the scene. But actually, there was another one that I think we was looking for a quick screen, and the receivers didn't even turn their come back for the ball.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
That was the
there was
first down on that same set of downs. It was the first down.
yeah.
Quick, threw it quick and went wide left, and there was nobody there. They were all running away.
And it just seemed to me, yeah, that was something that jumped out to me. There was a bit of a gap there, but it's a shame in a lot of ways because I mean I wouldn't say that on the basis of this season the Bills are certainly not the cream of the AFC, but they are probably a team that's used to being in these big high stakes games over the last several years, and I think really that they're now at a stage where they're playing for the season. And I think that really came out. That came out last night, but it probably is the story that we've seen all along in 2023, which is that when it comes down to these close games, they're on the losing side.
Is it the kind of thing with the you can have a crack at this game? Is the kind of thing? So the Bills, right, much maligned, bottom merchants, blah blah blah. They're still 500. They're 66. They're second in the East. And let's not kid ourselves on here. The Dolphins are winning these. That's not a shocker to anybody. But the Jets and the Pats are absolutely useless. So the Bills are going to take second in the East. They're going to be in the playoff conversation. Can they redeem their season? Are they a team that we see when we get to the postseason that they're not going to be the Bills? They're not going to be a team that constantly makes the playoffs and constantly gets battered out really, really quickly. Do we see enough about them, particularly when you watch a game like last night's against the toughest opposition the league has to offer? You've got to say at this stage. And they were in that until the dying minutes of that game. And, they took the Eagles to overtime. You can't really put up a better account of yourself than that. Is there something that you've seen that made you think, do you know what? They'll still be thereabouts in January. You still stand a chance of being able to do something noteworthy with your year.
I think they'll still be thereabouts, but they're now 10th I think in the conference, below the Broncos who are on a crazy run, Texans who are a fun team to watch. The other stat I kind of saw was the Bills are now 1-4 away from home. Seeing if they sneak into the playoffs, they're likely to be away. Well, probably away, and that's not really a good. Obviously, I know it's all swings around a bit to some degree, but it's not really a good tradition to go into for the season this year. To be at the moment, obviously we'll see if things change a wee bit away games, but to have that kind of not mentality that they can't win away from home, but like that, they seem like the Bills have always been like that for you. Like since I suppose Josh Allen's kind of come to the scene, they seem to the big games, when they're playing against another big team, they all seem to put up the points. but like that, they don't just quite get over the line half the time. You know, they always seem to be. Whereas the other games, you know, where you expect them to win, they're for whatever reason they just can't get it together. I don't know. It's strange, especially this season. I suppose probably more than any other ones. I suppose than years past. But
I think the other factor we need to look at as well, though, is the schedule, because the Bills get to actually get a nice week off, quite a late bye to recover emotionally as well as physically from this game. But
Laughing at that, but you're absolutely right.
What do they come back to? You know, so they've got the Chiefs in Kansas after the bye. They then host the Cowboys. And I guess a dicey trip across the country to play the Chargers. They play the Patriots week 17, and then they finish up with the Dolphins in Miami. So there's maybe a question there. Have the Dolphins got the division sewn up by then? But it's not an easy run of games, especially the next three coming up. And I think that's where I guess you would worry. Less so for me as a fantasy owner. I think that Josh Allen will put up another bucket load of points even if he loses. But I think that it's going to be a tough ask. You know, if it was just sort of an average strength of schedule that they're facing, then absolutely be thinking we could look at the Bills as being, you know, sneaking in that 7th seed. I think it's going to be a difficult run in for them.
I think even after I was going to say even after the bye, they're going to be probably further behind, or well, at least to some degree, aren't they? And then I say KC game, if they lose that, where do they go? So
I'll tell you this right now, like I wouldn't like to see them sneak in. I would not like to come up against the Bills again in the playoffs. I would much prefer they didn't make it, because that game last night just shows that they are a good team, and on their day, you know, they're a match for pretty much anybody. I know that they've lost a lot of tight games, and I know that the fact that they run us close doesn't really mean anything because everybody does. But I mean, see when you look at that team last night. I know that I know we put up a lot of points, but on offense, with Khalil Shakir coming into the team now, they've got Stephon Diggs, who's elite, Shakir, a cracking second year, and then obviously Gabe Davis probably had the best game he's had in a long time last night. So they've got three, you know, really good weapons there on that, you know, on the throwing side, and then Cook. He was outstanding in the run game, and of course Allen, you know, 2 rushing touchdowns. That they're scary when they're playing. I mean, just look at what they've done at the Dolphins. You know, we're talking about the Dolphins comfortably winning the division, but look at what you know, Buffalo done to them. So for me, if I had a choice, I'd rather not see Buffalo in the playoffs if that was an option.
It's interesting, John. The only one of that, because everything you said there, Kev, spot on. The only one I'll challenge on is James Cook. And I'm actually looking at the stat right now, and it shows you how the eye test can be really different to what the stats show you. James Cook was wildly inefficient last night. He was only 2.7 yards per carry, 16 carries, and he only had 40. I was just looking as well for 43 yards. Whereas Josh Allen ripped off 81 yards off 9 carries.
How many catches did Cook have? I know he missed. I know he didn't catch that one.
He did more damage in the receiving game. 6 catches for 57 yards. So he did more there. And we had 29 yard long. But that's where, and it's no something. Well, I suppose I'm so used to talking about Josh Allen on the ground, but Josh Allen through the air was excellent last night.
Yeah. But I mean, when you're talking about the eye test, Brian, like, you know, we are probably the best defense against the run in the league, and I thought maybe it wasn't so efficient, but I thought there were times in the game, you know, where he done really well, and he did, you know, he did get them a few decent first downs through just his absolute power running. I think it was at the start of overtime where he got ripped off 10 yards twice in a row.
Yeah, did a couple of third and longs. It was like a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9 they converted on.
Yeah, but I mean, I think whilst they might not have been hugely efficient up against our run defence, I thought the young boy played really, really well. And as I said, I'd be quite happy if that's the last we see of Buffalo this year.
Well, do you know, that's probably as big a compliment as you can get, actually, that I really don't want to see you again. Right, we'll tell you what, we'll keep it moving, and this is one where the NFL script writers, I'm going to say, didn't get their money's worth, because it was our final game for our review this week was the Jags and the Texans. And it looked like it was some game. It looked like it was set up for us to continue the saga of CJ Stroud and his absolutely meteoric rise to NFL stardom, but it was not to be. Gav, take us through this one, mate. What were your big takeaways for this game?
Yeah, well, I guess there's some small parallels with the game we just talked about, actually. So this is probably, I guess, the vision of things yet to come, with two of the exciting young quarterbacks in the league, Trevor Lawrence and CJ Stroud going at it. And I think for all, there's a lot of hype around Stroud, and much of it justified. He got outgunned this week by Trevor Lawrence, 364 yards. He had big days for Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley, both getting about 90 yards each. And much like our game in Philly, it came down to a 57-yard field goal with 30 seconds left to play. The only difference is that where Elliott succeeded for the Eagles, Matt Amendola had his second miss, doinking off the crossbar at the end. And I guess it's not to say that by any stretch it's a bad game for the Texans. I think both teams again trading blows throughout. They were briefly ahead, I think 14-13, so Tank Dell getting in the score sheet. Although Nico Collins was actually the favourite target of the week, and creating another nightmare for fantasy managers. He was over 100 yards through the air. So it was all certainly, again, Stroud and the team were passing the ball around. But I guess the one thing you would say is that it was a game that, for the most part, the Texans were chasing. They got behind early. They nudged in front briefly to go up 14-13. And then I think after that, they were down again by 10 points heading into the closing stretch of the game. But I guess the big story overall is that this is one where Jacksonville's now got a 2-game lead in the South. Obviously, they now split the series with the Texans, but they'll certainly be looking good for that divisional title. And it's kind of like we talked about last week. Texans, an exciting team. They're definitely fun and frisky. I think was the phrase we went for. But it maybe shows there's a wee bit that they've still got to go really to be winning consistently.
It is the interesting thing when we look at Houston, because I think I don't know, for the years that I've followed the league, I've just always enjoyed Houston being a complete whipping boy. Even when they had Deshaun playing for them, and Deshaun was playing much better ball than he's played for with Cleveland, but that's a whole other chat. They were still pretty rotten, and you were enjoying watching Watson by virtue of him digging them out of monumentally deep holes. But now they're a team that, I don't know, I'd say script writers must be loving them, because they are fun and frisky. They're a team that any given week, would you really want to be playing the Texans? They're they're one of those teams that, would anybody be really shocked? So if we look at what the Texans, their schedule for the rest of the season. So they are, as I pull it up here, so they've got Denver, the Jets, the Titans, the Browns, Titans again, and the Colts. Now, it would be a little far-fetched, but would anybody be really shocked to see the Texans walk away with 4, 5, 6 wins? I don't think that's terribly outrageous. Look, who's it? The toughest team they've got on there now, as much as it pains me to admit it, is Denver. So they play next week. They've got Denver in Texas, so they don't even need to go to Mile High. And then, other than that, it's a lot of teams that are really, really beatable. And unfortunately, I include my beloved Browns in that one. I know it sucks so hard at the minute to be a Browns fan. I'm going to complain in a minute once we get to the rear view. My complaints are lined up. Liam, tell you what, I'll put this to you, mate. Would you? So we talked about the Bills, sneaky chance, all the rest of it, of the playoffs. Texans, even if we accept that they might not win the South, or they probably won't win the South. They're still sat at what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th in the AFC. With that closing schedule, there's a lot of games that are winnable there. Would they be a wee surprise package for the playoffs that you think could? I'm not going to say they're going to win a Super Bowl, but they could bloody a nose. They could put an overconfident contender out.
Well, I think, as you say, they've been a fun team to watch all season, haven't they? So I don't think anyone in putting up strides been thrown it all over the place on a 300-yard game this week, and so no one's really going to want to face them to avoid it. But as you're saying, the kind of schedule coming up, the game next week is going to be near, well, not deciding, but they're both Broncos are 6-5 and Texans are 6-5. So whoever comes out of that win gets a nice, not a big cushion, but a reasonable cushion out of that. So I think, and then obviously at the very end, I suppose they've got near the end, they've got the Colts as well, which they're in the playoffs at the moment, I think, as it stands. But they are just except from that, the Titans, they should easily win that. The Browns, who knows what quarterback you'll be playing that week. So
I think I'm actually getting a game to be fair.
Yeah, and I think as much as they were chasing the game this week, the other thing the sequence I thought was interesting this week, which is fair play going for it. I think it was a 3rd and 1 and a 4th and 1. They threw it both times when they had just a yard to go, and maybe wanted that back. If you're going to go for the fourth down, you might want to just run it and see if you get another couple more inches. But fair play to them. You never thought they'd be where they are now and where Stroud is now. You wouldn't think, again, what were the odds of him being Rookie of the Year? Who knows? So
it's an interest. I don't think anybody's going to be laying a glove on Stroud at the minute in the Rookie of the Year conversation. I think that one is as close to signed, sealed, and delivered as they get. But I suppose that maybe is you kind of alluded to a big hole in the Texans team, the Texans kind of offensive options. I mean, last night they put up 91 yards rushing. CJ Stroud was their largest rusher and their most effective rusher by a distance. Devin Singletary, 6 carries, 18 yards. Damian Pierce, 5 carries, 14 yards. Okay, no, do you know what? Sorry, I was lying slightly. Tank Dell was actually their most efficient rusher with an average yard per carry of 12 yards per carry. That was 1 carry. But still, that was 1 very efficient carry. So is that, I don't know, what do you think, Kev? Is that they're a young team. They're a developing team. Nobody's saying they're meant to be the finished article yet. Is that the type of place that the Texans look to build going forward to make themselves away from being fun and frisky into being a serious team that no, this is the Texans and we need to take them seriously now?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. The Damian Pierce has been really disappointing this year. Last night was his first game back. He's missed 3 weeks with an injury. So maybe we'll see a bit more from them in the running game once Damian Pierce is fully fit again. Singletary's done okay. Standing in for him the last few weeks.
Okay, he's doing some significant lifting there, Kev.
Yeah. I mean, he's a backup and he's in there, doing his best while they're missing Pierce. Whether Pierce is going to be good enough, I mean, he had a great rookie season. Pierce ripped off some huge runs, but this year just doesn't seem to be at that same level. So I think if there's an area of their team that they really need to improve, if they're going to manage to make it to the playoffs, and then if they want to have any chance of winning a game in the postseason, then I think that's definitely where the improvement is going to have to come. I love watching Stroud slinging balls up the field to Tank Dell. I just think it's absolutely brilliant to watch, and they can really hurt any team, the way that he's chucking those balls up there. But that in itself becomes a bit one dimensional. You're not going to go all the way just with that one trick.
Yeah, and it is. It's a fun one. Nico Collins has been doing really well as well with them. Hey, even Bobby Trees, Robert Woods is like everybody's favourite, absolutely bizarre fantasy option. But anybody who has played fantasy football for long enough has been sat at least once with Robert Woods on their bench, thinking, "Do I start him? Is this going to be the week to get some targets?" And again, a significant number of us have been sat looking at him with like 35 points on our bench. You just can't start him reliably.
A really interesting thing you look at is if you look at who's currently holding the division leads at the moment, and you kind of run, I guess if you run up that list, you've got Miami. You'd fancy the Texans to give Miami a good game. If you didn't get Jacksonville currently in the 3 seed, we know that the Texans can split. They have split the series with the Jags, and then even the Chiefs at number 2. I wouldn't be saying for any second that the Texans are going to turn them over, but that'd be a fun game to watch at Arrowhead.
That would.
Yeah.
Texans still level. Chiefs are calling it now. Chiefs out in the Arrowhead Invitational is going to evaporate this year, and they're getting papped out. Calling it. It's just possibly more wishful thinking than anything else at this stage, to be fair. Right, okay. Thank you very much, guys. That is our review of all things, our in-depth review of all things Week 12. Now, as always, we're going to put the rest of the week in the rear view. We're going to get going. I'm going to kick us off, and I'm going to actually be a bit of a bottle merchant, and I'm going to say to be continued with Washington Dallas, because I have a little interesting bit coming up about them in our statistic of the week. So you're gonna need to wait. You're gonna need to bear with me for another couple of minutes for Washington Dallas, because there is something very interesting about that game that we're going to come back to. Now, with that said, and with me being a terrible bottle merchant, it was Friday Night Lights. We've already talked about how much we enjoyed having some Friday night football. Kev, it was the Niners at Seattle. It was 31-13. What was your one big takeaway for this game?
I don't know. The Niners are back.
Yeah, they didn't actually go away, did they? They just gave us false hope.
The Niners are legit again. That's what that showed.
CMC for MVP. Calling it. Should be. Quarterback this year. Right, okay, we're moving on for that. It was the second of the Friday night games. It was the Dolphins facing off against the Jets. It was 34-13. Liam, what was your takeaway for this one, mate?
Hail Mary delight.
Way. Yeah.
99 yard return, wasn't it? Something like that?
If anybody hasn't seen the delightful little mashup, or wonderful smudger pulled together for the Twitter feed with that that Fail Mary. Oh, the Fail Mary. And do you know what? You got to respect it. You got to respect going for it. Got to respect it, even if it was awful. It wasn't even a good Hail Mary. Right. Moving on. I'm sticking with my bad rhymes. We had Friday Night Lights, and it was Sunday Funday. And kicking us off, Gav, it was the Saints at Atlanta. I think it's fair to say this one wasn't a classic, but Atlanta came away with the win, 24-15.
They did, but I think free to good home, the NFC South title. Who wants that at 5 and 6?
It's such an embarrassment of a division. Like, it really is. I'm genuinely convinced we could fire like a flag team together, enter the NFC South, and be in the playoff conversation. Not saying we'd win. Saying we'd be in the conversation. Oh, it's just not something anybody wants to have to suffer with. Right, okay, speaking of things nobody wants to suffer, it's back to me. It's the Steelers at the Bengals, 16-10, and it's okay, Steelers. You can always try and beat teams that are on their whatever string quarterback that's never had a game before. Oh, it was a defensive battle, or it was offensively inept on both sides, but at least the Bengals have an excuse. Steelers, enjoy your victory Monday, but that was woeful, and I really hope you get found out going forward. Kev, coming back to you, mate, it was Carolina squaring off against the Titans. The Titans walked away for this one 17-10 victors. What was the big takeaway here?
Oh, hail King Henry. I just love the guy. Never tire of seeing him rushing into the end zone.
Runs through human beings. I'm reasonably convinced that he has to be registered as a weapon. Another big takeaway, to be fair, from that game is that Frank Reich is gone. Frank Reich got binned.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Frank Reich got binned. I think it took something like hilarious, like 6 hours or something like that after the game finished. We've watched you go, 1-10 or whatever the Panthers are suffering at the minute. And yes, Frank Reich can be found in your local job centre. I don't know, trying his best to get a gig somewhere. Who knows? He'll land somewhere and ruin another team. Right, okay, keeping it shifted on. It was Tampa Bay squaring off against the Colts, 20-27. Colts walking away with the win. Liam, what was your big takeaway, mate?
I suppose I kind of alluded to it earlier. Could it be playoff Minshew time soon? It's 3 wins on the spin.
Minshew Mania.
Indeed.
Minshew Mania is back. He's such a polarizing quarterback. I don't mean in terms of opinions of him, because everyone loves Minshew. Genuinely never spoken to a fan that dislikes Gardner Minshew. But it is one of two very specific quarterbacks that you get when he plays. He's either an absolute hero or he's awful. But long may the hero run continue. Right. Now, do you know what? I'm not even going to say that this is a week in rear view rest in one. Gav, justify your team.
Do you know what? I actually wasn't going to give you a takeaway for the Giants. I was going to say Mac is cheesed off. Mr. Jones was benched in the first half after throwing 2 picks, and I suppose serious questions have got to be asked. The Patriots are careering towards quite possibly the number 1 pick. I know there's a couple of dominoes that need to fall with the Panthers and the Cardinals, but that is a team in free fall. And yes, the Giants did win for the second week in a row. Mr. DeVito, no turnovers. And the Giants, obviously, with 3 takeaways, again, really kind of help them keep the whole thing afloat. But the Patriots are an absolute dumpster fire.
Now, we can't be too harsh on poor Mac Jones, because he has actually more or less achieved something that very few people thought was possible. He might actually retire Bill Belichick. Where this is going. I could see, a lot of chat of him moving to LA. I could see Bill just hanging it up, saying, nah, I'm broken. I'm a broken man. Right, we're swinging it round to me. It was my beloved Browns getting toasted 29-12 by the Denver Broncos. Now, first, I am going to say, and I will have my complaint and my excuses. The Denver Broncos, I'm going to say, are legit. Well, they're reasonable. Legit's maybe a bit strong. But they're on a 5-game winning streak. Russ is cooking. He's looking good. The defense is dirty as all hell, but that's another conversation for another day. But yes, it's okay. They can beat us when we're missing our QB1, left guard, left tackle, right tackle, running back 1. Myles Garrett's now injured and waiting on the results of an MRI in his shoulder. Cooper's broken. The Broncos have possibly ended the Browns season, is the unfortunate takeaway from that game. We are on the home stretch, guys. Kev, your last one, mate. It was the Rams squaring off against Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. 37-14 to the Rams. What was the big takeaway here, mate?
I don't even know. Takeaway, the Rams won, didn't they? That's about all I can say.
Stafford has functional thumbs. Cups Stafford.
Yeah, I must admit I wasn't paying too much attention to that game while it was going on.
Well, I think you were possibly otherwise occupied.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a bye. Right, your last one, Liam. It was not the last of the games, because obviously the Eagles and Bills are the last of the games on Sunday, but it was one of the late slate of games on Sunday. It was Kansas City playing the Raiders, 31-17 it wrapped up. What was the big talking point that you got for this one?
I think it's talking about, I suppose, second half shutout is done for KC. Finally, they managed to score some points in the second half of a game.
Not only that, they managed to score more points in the second half than they did in the first.
Indeed. Maybe another week, another wide receiver.
I'm genuinely waiting for all of us to just get cycled in KC at wide receiver. But I think it's only fair at this stage. Although Rashee Rice finally broken out? Is that the game? 107 yards on 8 receptions, 1 touchdown. Is that this? Is that have they found their wide receiver one? I will tell, I dare say. Right, finishes off, Gav. It was prime time. It was Baltimore playing against the Chargers. As much as the Bills-Eagles was an instant classic, I think it's fair to say this one wasn't. 2010, the Ravens walked away victors. What was your big moment for this game, or the big thing that you got from it? Gav's muted again. There he is. It's all right. He'll get there.
It's fine. It's not bought me enough time though, because I actually didn't miss this one off my list for games. Yeah, I mean this was it's an ugly one, but the Ravens are still 9-3, top of the AFC as a whole. So just keep rolling.
Yeah, makes me sick. I feel like I've got no nice things to say about anybody in the North except the Bengals, because they're just as banged up as we are. Right, okay. Thank you very much, guys. We are going to move into the closing stages of tonight. It's time for the Cruise, Missile and Crushers of the Week. Now, I am going to be a unashamed right royal bastard and get right in and steal the easy cruise missile at Fernando Roy's, even though it technically doesn't count because the play was ruled dead and it was called back. CJ Stroud to Tank Dell, the big one that we all seen, and it then got pulled back because Tank Dell's too fast off the line. They get done for moving too early. But it was an absolute bomb, and it was a beauty of a catch. From any of the games, guys, what were one of your cruise missile, your big chucks of the week? What did you love to see most? Who wants to dive in with a suggestion?
I think from the same game we had Christian Kirk actually had one from Trevor Lawrence right at the end of the half. He got pushed out at the 1 yard line, but that was a deep ball from Mr. Lawrence.
As a Christian Kirk fantasy on a couple of places, I was delighted to see it. Kev, Liam, what you got? What were some of your moments?
The one I had was probably from the Eagles game. It wasn't long, but it was like 29 yards odd. Was the Hurts to Zacchaeus, is it? Is that how you pronounce his name? That was just some throw for the touchdown.
Yeah,
well, as well with some of the not lesser wide receivers, the lesser receivers. That sounds terrible. But some of the non-big names, when it's not a Diggs, when it's not an AJ Brown, when some of these guys get a bit of love, you got to enjoy seeing that. Kev, round us off, sir. What was your missile?
Well, the Zacchaeus one was probably going to be mine, but I'm trying to think of non-Eagles ones. There's one that I remember watching, but I couldn't tell you who it was. It was a one-handed catch in the end zone, but I can't remember who it was.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, somewhere out there was an incredible one-handed catch. Jump onto the Twitter, jump onto X.
There was another one. Again, can't remember what game it was, but it was absolutely. It wasn't long. It was only maybe about 12 yards, but it was absolutely fizzed in between the two defenders.
I know the exact pass you mean, and I can't remember what game it was either. It was
a cracker. It was a beauty, but I cannot remember what game it was in.
Right, ladies and gents, listeners, this is where you need to help us out, and you need to get onto X, and you need to get tagging the crew and what your crew's missile of the week was, and you need to try and help me and Kev out and tell us what are the passes we're failing miserably at remembering. Oh my god, this is you can tell that me and Kev are the elder statesmen in here. Right, okay. So we'll move on quickly. Who are your big players that crushed it? You're the one guy for the whole weekend you think you nailed it, son. Who are your big ones? Who wants to dive in first? Who wants to get one of the easy options? Oh, this is great. This is like when I'm teaching the whole class.
I'll go in then. I'll just go for a homer pick because.
There you go, Liam. Give us a homer pick.
Watson finally turned up.
Wait,
big catches, seven targets, 5 receptions, 94 yards and a touchdown. Finally put a game together.
Absolutely, love to see it. And again, somebody who pre-season was being heralded as the next big thing, hadn't done a massive amount so far this season. So yeah, it must feel nice for the Green Bay fans getting to see him finally turn up. I hope he does it a bit more regularly. Gav, Kev, what have you got? Who was your number one crushing it player of the week? Gav, I dare you to pick a giant.
Oh, well, we did. We finally had the Jalen Hyatt coming out party this week. No, I think in fairness, I think if we're looking at our game of the week, and I'll probably leave it open for Kev to respond, but I think it was about two teams and two quarterbacks going at it. And I think Josh Allen, I think really was a huge part of what that made that game the contest that it was. We've talked about it already. 420 yards. 4 total touchdowns, 2 of them with his legs, and I think just the number of drive extending third and long conversions. I think it was a real delight to watch even in defeat.
Yeah, and obviously sets me up perfectly. Thanks, Gav. Obviously, do you know? I'll be completely honest. You could easily go for Josh Allen rather than Jalen Hurts, because I think on the eye test and numbers wise, Allen probably looked better. But when it came down to it, Jalen ran in the end zone for the win. So for me, he crushed it.
I thought of another one just quickly. An honourable mention: Bland from the Cowboys getting the 5th interception for a touchdown record or whatever it was.
Did he steal that off you, Brian?
No, I didn't. I've got a new one, but don't get me wrong, I'm very pleased for Bland, and he's having an incredible season. Dan, however, is being utterly bloody insufferable. And I'm actually fairly certain that the next time we see Dan on the pod, he's going to have a full Bland back piece tattoo done, because he's having a wee loving to himself over the guy. And it's a hell of a season he's putting together, it must be said.
Oh, if I can sneak one more in, then just seeing as we're not going to let Dan away with things too easily. It's not very often that I think anyone gives this guy credit, but Neil Reynolds from Sky Sports crushed it when he said that Dolly Parton sang "We Are the Champions" in the Cowboys Stadium for the first time in 30 years. Yeah, he's right on the money there.
I've just also loved a lot of the chat on Twitter around that. Was most people, when they seen Dolly come out on stage, assumed that was one of the cheerleaders from the last time the Cowboys were relevant. Love you, Dan.
Okay, January's coming.
last time they got a Super Bowl. Right, okay. One that I'm going to chuck in there, and this is one very much for all the fantasy football players out there. Kyren Williams had a day. And if you are that fantasy GM who has been sat there desperately watching your IR slot for him to come off it, my God, did he come off the bench in an absolute flurry. 2 touchdowns, 143 rushing yards, 61 receiving yards, 8.9 yards per carry and 10.1 yards per reception. An absolutely monstrous performance for somebody that has been injured for the past number of weeks, coming back, not missing a step, really, really looking to push on towards the tail end of the year. So definitely an absolutely dominant performance for Mr. Williams. Right. Now, with that, and we've had a little mention of the Cowboys in Washington, but Washington actually set a record this week. And this is our statistic of the week, gentlemen, because entering Thanksgiving, NFL teams were a combined 57-0 57 victories, never a single loss in the past 25 regular seasons when they finished a game with the following stats: 100 plus rushing yards, 250 plus passing yards, over 35 minutes time of possession, fewer than 25 penalty yards, and 1 turnover or less. The Commanders put up all of those stats and lost by 35 points. That's just sickening. Again, it's where I suppose we come back to the comment for earlier, where you can't just look at the box score. The old eye test has to tells you way more than you're ever going to get out of the stat line, eh?
That's one that Next Gen Stats will be proud of you with that combo there, Brian.
That was I found that earlier in the week and I thought that'll be getting saved. Right. Okay, gents. Now, with that is going to wrap us up for this week. So, thank you very much, folks. That is our review of Week 12 coming to a close with, of course, the small matter still to be decided of, I can't believe I'm saying this, a resurgent-looking, dare I say, Chicago Bears team coming up against the Dauber-in-Chief and the Minnesota Vikings. So that we've all got to look forward to in the wee hours of the morning tonight. And remember, folks, your Week 13 coverage of the NFL starts with the preview crew on Thursday night, and they're going to get us ready for what I'm sure will be another incredible week of NFL action. Now, with that all said, remember, folks, you can find the crew on Twitter. Sorry, I keep saying Twitter. On X, formerly known as Twitter, at Grid Iron Crew. You can get us on Insta, grid_iron_crew. Stick Grid Iron Crew into YouTube, stick it into Threads, stick it into wherever you get your podcasts. Get in touch. Help me and Kev out trying to remember who played some of these passes that neither of us can remember. Get in touch on all of the socials. We would love to hear from you. Help grow the community. And with that said, Kev, it has been another fantastic review crew, mate. Thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Thanks very much, Brian. Pleasure.
Liam, I can't believe I've had you on for more than one victory in 1 year. Thank you very much for joining us, mate. And it's been a cracker.
Always a pleasure.
And Gav, we're talking about multiple victory Mondays from somebody you never expected to see any this year. Enjoy your week, mate, and I hope you enjoyed your Week 12. Well, I'm sure you enjoyed it more than me anyways.
Thank you very much. Pleasure, guys.
And that is us for this week, folks. As I say, remember, you can catch us everywhere you get your podcasts. And until next week's review crew, we will catch up with you then.